Hi, I'm Michael Smith from Bad Weasel Games and the GameWeasel.com blog. Welcome to episode 2 of my new video series on porting my game Big Bad Sudoku book to Unity 5. And as I said in the last video, I've already started the port, so these first couple of videos are just going to be catching us up on some things that I've already accomplished. We won't be in Unity yet in this video. We need to start with an overall plan. Today is more about design and the proposed changes being made to the game. In this video, I'm going to discuss what will be new in version 4. Then I'll show you the graphics texture atlases from version 3 and the sprites and the graphics that were used in version 3. And then my ideas and inspiration for the theme of the new version 4. Then I'll show you how I got the graphics designed and show you the design process and how to work with an artist. There's a lot to cover here, so let's get started. What's new in version 4? Well, I wanted to start off by talking about what I want version 4 to be like, including the design changes. So here is version 3. Let me pull this up. So here's version 3 of Big Bad Sudoku book running on an iPhone 6. So we can get it to respond. Okay. Let me give you a quick tour of this game. So we have an animating board. We have the numbers animate on, and then we have some different options. So let's start off. I'm going to just grab a new easy. Okay, so there's ads. There are ads. This is an ad-supported game if you get it for free. And I try not to overdo the ads. They just come up about once per game. But let's go new, easy puzzle, and then we can pick the design that we want to play. And you can see that the numbers animate on, and then let's see, we'll go in here and put a number in here. You have this pin input device, and I'm just going to guess that that's a 1. Hey, look, I was right. Okay, so when you put numbers in, the numbers draw on. Man, I'm really on fire. And then there's a book mode where you can play through a book. So in here, the books are 50 puzzles each. And then I also had downloadable themes, a high score system, and then the puzzle books are in here as well. So let's show you what options look like. I hit options. That is a standard iOS table view. And then marks gives us some options of what we can do with the marks. So for example, we can show what all the possibilities are. We can turn them all on, turn them all off, and then we can go in and edit those. And then if you're not sure what to do, you can hit Get Hint, and a hint shows up and it tells you what it found and where it is. So that gives you an idea. So obviously that one is a 9. So let's hit 9. Okay, so this is the game Big Bad Sudoku book. This is version 3 of the game. So let me talk about some of the things that I wanted to do different. Number 1, in version 3 I did have these downloadable themes, which those were in-app purchases, and they would change the look of the game. So I had one theme that you could buy, which was called the 10-toy theme, and themes required a whole theme language to support them. So the theme was a package that included different texture maps. So the problem with this was that I don't think people liked having in-app purchases. When in-app purchases were introduced, the game kind of dropped a little bit in sales. They just didn't sell very well. So if in the last episode I talked about that 900,000, almost 1 million total downloads that I had, out of that only about 3,000 people purchased the 10-toy theme. That's only 0.3% of total users ever even decided to buy that theme. The total revenue for the 10-toy theme was only about $1,000. So if you think of it from a business perspective, you have a feature that took a lot of time to engineer. Every new theme takes a long time to create because it's not just replacing the graphics, you also have to write a script to go along with it. And it just didn't sell very good, and it's even possible that it turned people off from even buying the game, because when you go to buy the game, you can see that it has in-app purchases. So the themes are going to go bye-bye. There's not going to be any downloadable themes in version 4. What about puzzle books? Well, puzzle books actually sold about 4 times as much as the theme did. Still not great by itself, but there was only one book pack to buy. And maybe people who bought books would have kept buying them. So what if books could be generated using code instead of being handpicked? That wouldn't take any extra effort to make more and more books. I could have an unlimited number of books. So I'm going to get to this thing with puzzle books and that in another video. Still, my decision is to not have any in-app purchases in the game. Only ad-supported add-ons. So maybe something like watch a video and get a feature. That's okay because people can easily opt out of doing it. They don't have to get those things, and so therefore hopefully they wouldn't be too annoyed by it. And then I'm also going to have a deluxe version of the game that has just everything unlocked, so no ads, and then everything in there. So there's going to be two versions of the game. And the last thing I want to talk about is the design changes here. So there's a couple of things here. One is that this game doesn't have a main menu. The game board is kind of the main menu, and all the menu options are just down along the bottom. So I wanted to kind of switch that up, have a main menu that takes you to the different screens, to options, the books, playing the game, and all that stuff comes off of a main menu. Another design change is the addition of some true 3D elements instead of just sprites that look 3D. So let's dive into how graphics were done in version 3. I want to go over the version 3 sprites because I will be using many of them in this port. And I'm not going to be doing sprites using the built-in sprite system in Unity 5. I've got my own sprite system that I'm going to create for that. So here's the main texture atlas for the iPhone. In version 3, I had different atlases for the iPhone and iPad, plus different sizes of each one of those for Retina and non-Retina. In this new version, I have to support a lot more screen sizes, so I'm going to have full desktop versions, different Android tablets, so I don't even really know all the screen resolutions of all the devices. So because of that, I have to approach things a little differently. I'm going to only have one large version of each sprite, and then it'll resize or size down or whatever. So here is the sprite sheet. I've got this paper here, the paper background, and the paper background is different. Now, the iPad obviously has to be bigger, and so in the Unity version, this is just going to be one texture that's the paper all by itself. And then I have this pen device. There's actually different versions of the pen in here. And on the iPad one, there's even a round one. But this pen graphic has like a fake depth. I mean, it's a flat sprite, but it has a drop shadow and it has a little bit of depth to it. And then we have these cards that come up that have the puzzles on them, and or there's other cards over here that are for the different marks options. And then you can see here in the middle I have these shadows, and they're soft shadows. So if I go back to the game, see, when the cards fly out, they appear to be floating above the game board because of the shadow. And even in this version, they are moving in 3D space. They are actually closer to the camera than the game board. It is a perspective camera, not an orthographic camera. So in this version, in this scene here, I'm drawing the paper. Then I'm drawing the game board on the paper and the numbers and the grid and anything else that's being drawn on the paper. Then I draw all the shadows, then the cards. So now when I switch to Unity, everything other than the paper and the numbers are going to be 3D objects. Then the Unity's engine is going to handle the shadows for me instead of faking them the way I'm doing it now. Although there is a trade-off. My shadows here are soft shadows. In Unity they won't be. Even on the desktop version, when you have soft shadows enabled, I don't think they're going to be this soft. So I kind of like the look of this, but you have to kind of give and take, and in Unity, having it handle the shadows for me is, I think, going to be better. So anyway, back to Photoshop. Here we have the cell numbers, and to make the numbers animate on, I have like a frame-by-frame cell animation here. So this is split into little cells, little sprites, and then I can choose which frames of this or which cells of this are going to animate on in what order for which animation. Each of these sprites has a location on the sprite sheet and a width and a height. And I have a process that I use using Excel actually that converts this information to a vertex array. And so then I could access these sprites by name inside my code. In Unity, I'm going to be doing this using my own custom sprite system. And instead of the information being in a vertex array like this, it's going to be in an XML file, and then I'll create my own meshes out of that. And that's something that I will show you later how I'm going to do. For now, the main thing to know is that I'm going to have to change these. Mostly I'm going to be getting rid of these elements that I won't be using as sprites any longer, the elements that will now be 3D objects. That does raise a few issues which I'll have to cover later, but like for example, one of them is that we'll now only have one pen style. My inspiration for the original Sudoku book was kind of like that it would be like a magical book, like something from like a Harry Potter movie. Like if Harry Potter played Sudoku, the book would be old and things would just kind of appear on the paper, and it would be magical. I don't know. So that was the original idea. Here's a couple of screenshots from that. I did have the kind of Celtic thing back then going on as well. And so we had this round pen back then. Here's another shot from that. So that was the original idea. Then by version 3, I'd kind of changed it to more of a peachy type thing. At least the cover was a little bit more like that. Now with version 4, I want to go back to the old look, a little bit more Celtic with the theme. I would say even like Game of Thrones-ish.
Hodor.
If that's a word. So here's how we start the graphics. Basically it starts off with me making some sketches and sending to my 3D guy. I have a 3D artist, and he's also a designer. I met him on deviantart.com, and to me what makes a good 3D artist is someone who can also do design, because often I know what I want and I have some ideas and guidelines, maybe I have some sketches or some reference photos, but I need someone who can then take the reins and then take it to the next level or cross the finish line or whatever you want to say with it. And then sometimes I still have to do some work on it after the delivery, and you kind of assume that you're going to have to do that. So let's show you this. So for the 3D pen type thing, I have this wooden box with metal numbers on it. And you know, you have the pencil marks that would show up from beside it. And then there's a little close-up of that. So that's kind of was the design for that. Then I had an idea for this sigil. So the sigil is basically like a floating thing that has these blades that come out, and the blades are buttons. So the top 4 things that you would need to do while playing the game, getting back to the menu, getting a hint, or restarting the game, or moving on to the next puzzle, these would be things that would be in this like sigil thing. I also have this idea for a difficulty and puzzle selection tool that is kind of like a scroll. There's a book icon I'm going to need for books, and I'm going to need that with and without this lock. And here's a close-up of the lock. So these are the drawings that I sent him to give him some concepts of what I wanted. I also sent him this image of a wooden box just to kind of give him some ideas. You'll see how he implemented some of those ideas. And then I sent him some screenshots. Now these screenshots are actually from the Game of Thrones main title. This was for the scroll. This one was also another kind of idea for the scroll. Here's more from that. And then just the sigil was kind of something similar to that, but not exactly like it. We want something inspired by it. So I sent these drawings to my 3D guy, and then the process is that we work through it together. So he'll send me some drawings back, and then we'll go back and forth. So for example, here's some drawings. He wanted to change up the sigil a little bit and make it a little bit unique. And so these were his drawings that he did on that, and then his ideas of what the blades would look like. Because of course I don't want it to look like a complete ripoff of Game of Thrones. I want it to be inspired by it and to have the general kind of Celtic medieval type theme. When you're working with an artist and you see this, if he can send you back his drawing of it and it matches your idea, then you know he's moving in the right direction. So it's always good to get a pencil sketch back from the artist before they start modeling. And not all artists will be able to do that. But if they can, at least then you know you're on the same page. So now let's look at the models that he sent back. Originally we had the pencil pad kind of coming out from the pen pad, and then I later kind of realized that wasn't going to work for me. So we separated it out. This was just me comping in Photoshop. I realized that I needed more buttons here, and then I wanted it as a separate box. So there's kind of like the idea of like, hey, make that box a little bit bigger. And then we got this alternate, which is a little thinner, doesn't have as much of a bezel around it. And then this one is kind of the higher poly one that kind of has this engravings in it. And then it has metal things on the sides. And you can see how he took inspiration from this object that I sent him. It's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same at all, but it has some of the similar design elements. With the book, he pretty much just nailed it out of the park. So we have the book with the key, and then the book without the key, and then actually here is the book textured. So that looks pretty nice actually. And on the scroll, you can see some different views of that. And I went in and I said, look, I need these little dividers in here because of how I was thinking about using it. And I don't know if I'm going to end up using this in the game or not. That's yet to be seen. But here's some different things. And then here's his render of it, which is pretty nice actually, with some metal and different things. But again, I don't know if I'm going to end up using this in the game. We're going to find out. And finally, the sigil. Now this one is interesting because we went back and forth on this one a lot. This was one of his earlier ones. I really didn't like these. They kind of look like sails. It's just these gigantic blades, and I really wanted it to be more like a sword. So I'll show you some different ones. It's not the same kind of blade that I was thinking. I said make it more like a sword, and he had done this one. And then when I said make it more like a sword, he came back with this, which again is just not quite right. And actually I took it into Photoshop and took this one with the sharp edge and modified it and sent it back to him. And then we ended up with this, which is a lot better in my opinion. And here's a nice render of the sigil with now with even some kind of all, that's pretty much all done. I mean, the material here is a little too shiny, plasticky looking, but the texturing is correct. Okay, well that about does it for today. I did get these models, so in the next episode we're going to check out the models that he sent. We're going to look at the way he texture mapped them. Then I'm going to show you what I had to do to change them and to make them a little bit better. And then we're going to go ahead and get them imported into Unity. Please subscribe to my channel. Also, please comment and ask questions. If there's anything you want me to cover in a future video, just let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.